Prior to the electronic age, spiritual seekers from all over the world relied on traditional methods such as prayer, fasting, singing, religious ceremonies, meditating, dancing, exorcism, etc., to drive out the evil spirits which torment us. There is no doubt that all these methods have enjoyed a degree of success, overcoming certain afflictions under a variety of conditions. I have worked with some of these myself for years, but was disappointed in the exaggerated claims made by the promoters. It was hard work and the process was too slow. What I wanted was a program which would smooth out my brain waves permanently and connect my two hemispheres with very little effort on my part. With that dream in mind, I went on meditating the old-fashioned way. In 1955, I received a letter in the mail from a company called Tools for Exploration, which sold health products, praising a high-tech meditation program called HoloSync from Centerpoint.com. I had already spent $3,000 on gadgets from this company, which were fun to play with, but without much happening. I had given up pot smoking and lysergic acid experiments decades earlier, and was eating and exercising properly, but still suffered from mild depressions which I was trying to get rid of. After stalling for 6 months, I finally broke down and ordered the introduction to this course and read the literature, which turned out to be pretty interesting. The theory behind the program was that the brain is always responding to stimuli, and when the stimuli is more than the brain can handle, it collapses or grows stronger. If the brain adapts to the increase in stimulus, it grows more neural pathways and glial cells. More neural pathways mean that more information can be processed in a shorter time. The tapes and CDs contain sounds which correspond to brainwave frequencies ranging from 1 to 14 Hz, from beta to delta, or from hyper-alertness to dreamless sleep. A gradual exposure to the increased stimuli at lower and lower frequencies drops the threshold of awareness down to the delta or sleep frequency. The end result after years of exposure is an increased awareness of total brain function, both high and low. The subconscious becomes conscious and the left and right hemispheres link together. The first time I listened to the vibrations, I thought my brain would explode from the pressure, so I knew I had stumbled onto something new and powerful like a mild hallucinogen. As the years passed, my reactions to the frequencies ranged from depression, when I had to quit for a while, to intense and prolonged endorphin highs. However, at the end of level 12, after 5 years of exposure, the vibrations on the final CD had no impact whatsoever. I had adapted to a new level of performance. I was aware of a marked improvement when my appliance repair diagnostic abilities improved, my social skills went up a notch, I was able to write 2 books, one was published, my mood swings flattened out, my sense of hearing improved, and I finally found God. Just kidding. There is no doubt in my mind that I switched from formal meditation to just sitting quietly in the early morning hours before getting out of bed because of the impact of these lower frequencies on my subconscious. Sometimes when I walk down the street, I am so relaxed I feel like falling asleep. At the same time, I am completely alert and able to engage in conversation with strangers. I have learned to accept myself as I am, and the unresolved internal conflicts I carried around inside of me for years have been confronted and laid to rest. This was a long time ago, but I believe that the website is still up and they're still selling the program. So go ahead and see for yourself. Check it out. Earlier I stated that the date that I purchased the program was 1955, when in fact it was 1995. Just making that correction. The next step is to go beyond religion. According to the American Century Dictionary, the Christian religion is an acceptance of a personal God who is the creator and ruler of the universe, entitled to obedience and worship. An alternative definition is a belief in a being or spirit worshipped as immortal and with supernatural power over nature. Having been raised in the Catholic faith until age 20, it never occurred to me even for a moment that life was possible without some kind of religious belief. Such was the power of my training. However, over the last 40 years, I have questioned that programming so many times with no negative consequences that it became impossible for me to believe in it any longer. The history of religion shows that through the power of our own imagination, we attempt to influence nature by performing ceremonies and complex rituals, often repeated over and over to bring about the desired results. Even though these performances are fascinating and seem to offer benefits, they actually do very little to affect the natural course of events. On the few occasions when the rain comes or the seriously ill child begins to get well, the ritual is credited with having brought good results and the word gets around. The truth is, religious ceremonies are far more effective at consoling frightened and needy individuals than influencing the natural processes. When I finally got the courage to stop believing in my Catholic training and allowed my own intelligence to take over, it opened up a huge world of possibilities to which I had been denied access. As an explorer willing to take risks, I decided that an angry and jealous God who loves me unconditionally but might also send me to hell could no longer be my guiding light. Instead, I relied on my own self to determine my future. What's wrong with that? There was also another problem that needed to be addressed. How is it that a supreme power needs to be worshipped by a microscopic organism? Doesn't this seem a bit odd to you? On the contrary, that kind of power and glory wouldn't need to be worshipped or loved. More likely, it would already be eternally happy and complete. The word worship means service, devotion, and adoration to a deity through actions, ceremonies, and rituals. I have always felt uncomfortable trying to do this because I never believed in the deity to begin with. Instead, I felt that my very existence was at its root already complete and perfect, and there was no reason to worship anything. This feeling that something extraordinary was always present behind the scenes and knew exactly what was going on usually comes when I'm halfway through waking and sleeping in the early morning hours. This sense of eternal mystery, which remains just out of reach, is what I find most attractive, and not the popular downtown religious practice by the masses, which spill over into government functions and the public media. Even though I accept the existence of higher power, I prefer not to give it a name or institutionalize it, because when you do, it is reduced to a human commodity which can be fought over and exploited for personal gain. It took me 40 years of watching the human drama to understand that we commonly use God as a way of getting what we want. O Lord, protect me from my enemies, strike down those who defile thy commandments, and wrap me in the cloak of thy righteousness. Human beings have been creating imaginary anthropomorphic deities for thousands of years, manufacturing powerful entities made in the image and likeness of themselves, and using them for the sole purpose of gaining personal power and wealth. When the many gods idea was distilled down into one, the balance of power shifted from the Roman and Greek gods to God the Father, Jehovah, and Allah, and who knows, maybe the next step will be no gods at all, just an energy field which contains all things. This is what Christians are afraid of, that science will continue exploring the boundaries of our world from the furthest reaches of space into the depths of subatomic particles and not find Jesus or the Christian God anywhere. This is why I found Eastern religion, and in particular Zen, a refreshing break from Christianity because it teaches self-sufficiency over dependency. You are a manifestation or a modification of a vast energy which extends to infinity and contains all. Once you see this, much of the complications which come with popular religion simply vanish. In the meantime, each new generation may carry on with that old-time religion Grandma and Grandpa knew, or join a new cult claiming something fantastic and thus keep the search going. From a certain angle, the history of religion and the Christian search for God, Jesus, and heaven is part of the divine plan. To go on searching until you tire of the effort, and in giving up and letting go, you discover yourself. The next topic that is beyond my comprehension, but I can still talk about, is time and eternity. One of the ideas that the Christian church has succeeded in weaving into the religious tapestry is the dual concept of time and eternity. Time has been pretty much under our control for a long time and can be easily learned by age 7. It has a beginning and an end and can be broken down into milliseconds with our atomic clocks. But eternity, that's a concept that boggles the imagination and puts the measuring instruments out of commission. Because eternity has no beginning and no ending, theologians decided they could manipulate the faithful by promising them eternal happiness if they were obedient and eternal damnation if they were not. This is a powerful motivator that any school child could accept. But supposing as an adult you begin to wonder how much of it is true. From the Christian view, God always lives in the realm of eternity while we live out our brief lives in a time zone. The most we can hope for is to be raised from the dead by God and enter into eternal embodied bliss. This is truly a wonderful idea, but there is a major problem here with consistency. How can you, the body, with a predetermined life cycle less than 125 years, become immortal simply through faith and obedience? Immortality doesn't work that way. You either are or you are not eternal. You can't switch back and forth unless you change the meaning of the word eternal, or you have forgotten that with your death as a body, there is only the spirit left over, which is already eternal. This entire logjam of doctrines, beliefs, and rituals is like a free-for-all organized by children in a classroom with no one in charge and no rules. Everyone who is born into this wild and crazy game could be caught up in the drama and keep it going, especially with no time out to question its meaning. It may rarely occur to anyone that the rules we live by are agreements which start out as possibilities. We decide whether or not to make them true. This is the last essay in this series. I call it What If? If you can accept the story that a man named Jesus came back to life after being tortured nearly to death and then speared through the heart, perhaps you can also accept other possibilities. What if Jesus had merged with pure energy, his Father in heaven, so completely that he was no longer attached to his body the way we are. Every experience mankind has ever had or will have is the doing of the nervous system. All historical records are only descriptions or representations of experiences and not the experiences themselves. If energy and matter are interchangeable, and energy cannot be created or destroyed, then nothing is being created or destroyed. If I can learn through repetition to believe in something, I can also unlearn it. Life is a mass of charged particles that aren't going anywhere. Time is a man-made illusion. There is only eternity. The universe is God's dream.